to bring to order the August 15, 2023 Landmark Preservation Commission meeting. We will start with introductions, and I'll go ahead since I'm already talking. My name is Julie Johnson. I'm Historic Preservation Project Manager, and I was nominated by the community at large. Larry, you want to take it from there?
I'm Larry Sykes. I'm an architect and I was nominated by History Colorado.
Hello, I'm Gary Petrie. I'm an architect and I was nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
Hi, I'm George Dennis, retired law enforcement, and I was nominated by History Colorado.
I'm Nick Fusianis. I'm an architect and a developer, and I was nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
I'm Erica Warzel. I'm an architectural historian and preservation consultant nominated by the community at large.
And I'm Brittany Bryant, Denver Landmark Preservation staff.
Okay, thanks, everybody. All right, our next item on the agenda are the meeting records for approval. Oh, I'm sorry. Audio tips for virtual participants. For better sound quality, and we strongly encourage you to download Zoom on your personal laptop or tablet, or if your phone. And then audio settings is going to be, see. I can hardly read it. Here, can I read this? I'll read this one. Okay, so I forgot my glasses. Pardon me, everybody. I'm going to have to read from computer. Okay, for better sound quality, and we encourage you to download Zoom on your desktop, laptop, tablet, or mobile device. Click audio settings to bring up an additional menu, add a background noise suppression, test your speaker and microphone, adjust the maximum output volumes. For presenters or public commenters, when it is your turn to speak, to mute or unmute, click on the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen. Expanding the menu next to the microphone will reveal additional options like select your speaker and microphone devices, test your microphone and speakers, adjust their maximum output volumes. If you still have audio challenges, switch to phone for audio. All right, so meeting records are next on our agenda. We have July 11th and July 25th. Did anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I saw on the July 11th minutes that the vote count for the final design review project number 2023-COA-243, I think, at 3020 Perry was left off. So that needs to be included. I believe it was unanimous.
Okay, great. Erica, thank you. Anything else? All right, all in favor of adopting the meeting records as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, Gary,
As amended.
as amended, you're absolutely correct.
Aye.
As yeah. And all nay, anyone nay? I'm going to abstain since I wasn't at either one of those meetings. So the meeting records are approved as amended. Thanks, Erica. Our next thing on the agenda is public comment. And this is a time at the beginning of every meeting where we reserve for anyone from the public that wishes to speak about historic preservation in Denver in general, not related to one of the projects that's on our agenda later. But if anyone in the public has any kind of comment or anything that they would like to say about historic preservation, now is the time to do so. Do we have anybody? Do you guys? No hands raised. All right, then let's go ahead and move on to our consent agenda. These are routine design review items which meet the design and guidelines and are recommended for commission approval without discussion. Any commission member can request that an item on the consent agenda move to the design review agenda. Go ahead and announce the projects. They are 2023-COA-292 at 910 Olive Street in Montclair. Number 2023-COA-262 at 361 Ray Street in the Country Club District. And number 2023-TAXC-007 at 3225 West 23rd Avenue in Middle Caulfield. And our last on the consent agenda is 2023-TAXC-008 3048 West 23rd Avenue, also in Middle Caulfield. Commissioners, do you have any comments, any questions, anything that you would like to take off of the consent agenda? Any conflicts of interest on which is not? Okay, great. Would anyone like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented?
I will do so.
Erica, thank you.
I move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
And Nick has seconded it. Thank you, Erica and Nick. All right, all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, it is approved unanimously. All right, everybody, design review process. We're going to go now into the next agenda item, which is our design review process. The chair, that's me, will announce the design review items on the agenda in order by address. Commission members announce ex parte contacts and conflicts of interest. Staff will introduce the application and recommendation. Commissioners can question the staff after the presentation. The applicant then has a presentation which will be limited to 10 minutes. The commissioners may question the applicant as well. Public comment period follows, and anyone wishing to make a public comment has 2 minutes per person. If you would like to speak regarding a specific project and you are not a part of that applicant team, please click the hand raise button. For those calling via phone, dial *9 to raise your hand or email landmark@denvergov.org prior to the comment period. Then staff will clarify if that's necessary. The commission will deliberate and the commission will make a motion and vote. And the first project on our agenda is Crystal's project. It's 2023-COA-263 at 3044 Champa Street in Curtis Park. Crystal, take it away.
Thanks, Julie. Let me get on this. Unless you just want to control it, Brittany, because
It doesn't work.
yeah, we'll just do that. Okay. So this application is for a phase 1 new infill proposal at 3044 Champa Street. The applicant is proposing to construct a new single-family residence with a garage ADU at the rear on an existing vacant lot in the Curtis Park Historic District, which is outlined in red on the left. Development along this block of Champa Street will have a consistent setback of 20 feet, as shown on the site plan. Both 3052 and 3042 Champa Street on either side of this property do have that 20-foot setback as well, that has already been approved by the commission. Next slide. So here at the top of the screen, you can see the streetscape comparison for the whole block, showing the proposed infill structure with a purple box around it near the center. The new proposed house is a combination of gable front and flat roof structure, will be approximately 30 feet tall and is of a height consistent with other houses on the block. At the bottom, you can see a closer view of the proposed structure next to adjacent approved designs. You can see the previously denied design outlined in orange below to the right. Staff does have concerns over the roof form of the gable roof, flat roof forms intersecting with the new revised shed roof form to access the 2 roof decks. This is not something that is seen anywhere in the district and does not fit with the surrounding historic context. Next slide. So here you can see on the left, additional studies the applicant included in relation to encroachments into the bulk plane that have previously been approved on the block. Staff would note that these approved encroachments were allowed by the commission as they allow each design to better fit the character of the district, and not all of them are for roof access. In this case, for 3044 Champa Street, due to the complex design of the 3 roof forms, staff does not believe the design better fits the district, which is why staff is not supportive of an administrative adjustment at this time for an encroachment into the bulk plane. At right, you can see other studies the applicant did for roof access. However, all of them take access at the center of the structure and do not show other ways to access the roof that could be pushed forward or to the rear. And as this is new infill and not yet built, other studies of forms or ways to access the roof do seem feasible at this time. Next slide. So here's the compatibility demonstration showing other Queen Anne styles in the district that the proposed design is partially based off of for this new structure. At the center, you can see the new design outlined in purple and that previously denied design outlined in orange. The masonry porch proportions on the proposed new infill structure are not typical of Queen Anne or Italianate styles in the district. The Queen Anne styles typically are less heavy and do not have masonry columns or walls. However, the commission previously found that the porch is a modern interpretation of existing porches in the district and seemed okay with that at the time. Next slide. So on the left here, you can see the current proposed structure design outlined in purple again with the previous design in orange that was denied. Design guideline 4.4 states to design the height, mass, and form of a new building to be compatible with the historic context. The building form, a combination of gable front and flat roof, and now additionally the shed roof form is not characteristic of the district. Next slide. Here's the front and rear elevation of the new infill structure, the previous design again outlined in orange below. The design is not compatible with roof forms found in the district and stands out since it is a combination of these gable front, flat roof, and shed roof forms, which are not combined and found in the historic context. The house includes typical features such as a front porch, and the windows are tall 1/1 configurations that match historic context, so those elements seem to be fine. Next slide. Here are the side elevations of the structure, which also show that proposed roof form. Design guideline 4.6 states to use a roof form that is compatible with the historic context. The proposed structure will have, again, that combined gable front, flat roof form with an added shed roof form at the center part to access the 2 rooftop decks. The combination of these 3 roof forms is not found within the district and is not compatible with other roof forms in the district. Additionally, design guideline 4.17 states to ensure decks are compatible with the surrounding historic context. The 2 rooftop decks are proposed at the rear and front of the structure. The first one behind the parapet of the flat roof portion and the second one behind that center shed roof access. The rooftop decks will cover a large area of the roof and begin at that front facade parapet wall. And the roof deck will be visible from the street, though it is screened by that parapet wall. Staff recommended that the roof deck access to be moved either all the way forward or backward, but that the currently proposed center access is what's creating that awkward roof form in relation to the rest of the structure and therefore does not fit with the district. Next slide. Here's the garage ADU design, which has not changed from the last submittal. It is located in a typical location for garages and ADUs in the district and will be accessed off an alley to the rear of the property following historic patterns. This 2-story flat roof structure is subordinate to the primary structure and matches heights found in the district. And finally, these are the perspective views of the proposed structure. The proposed infill structures roof form is a combination of styles that is not characteristic of the district and does not meet design guidelines 4.4, 4.6, or 4.7. Therefore, staff is recommending denial.
So thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? That's fine. Okay, great. The applicants are here.
I'm here, and then there's somebody online that will do the
Okay.
presentation.
Okay, great. Have a seat, please.
Thank you.
And then who are we looking for online?
Jason.
Jason?
Actually, Jason and the homeowner Caroline might be there as well. Yeah, Caroline Cochran.
Right. Oh, terrific. Hi there. To the applicants, can you hear us online?
Yes.
Okay, great. Are you both unmuted?
Jason is.
Okay, there you go. All right,
Yes.
terrific.
Hello.
Okay, welcome. And you will have 10 minutes to make the presentation. Begin whenever you're ready.
Great, thank you. I'll just briefly kick us off. My name is Caroline Cochran, and along with my husband, Chris, I'm the homeowner and hopefully future resident of 3044 Champa Street in Denver. Just wanted to thank you for considering our application today. And as someone in the field of architecture and planning, I really appreciated your thoughtful discussion at our first hearing and your endorsement of most aspects of the mass form and context of our proposed design. We also appreciated your encouragement to give the 3rd floor roof form some more study. So that's what we have to present to you today. So thanks. I'll kick it over to Jason.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Kennel with Alvarez Morris Architectural Studio located at 121 Adams Street. Just as a quick refresher for everyone, during our first meeting in April, the commission was in support of many of the elements for this project. They agreed that the width of the building was not an issue as the adjacent neighbor has the same overall width. And they also agreed that the proposed gable end and flat roof was not a combination of styles as Landmark staff has continued to express. There was appreciation of the massing as it helps reduce its scale and relate to the homes immediately next door. The way the porch was expressed was also not an issue to the commission, so we decided to keep the supporting elements the same as our original submission. Our initial denial was generated from the project not meeting the guidelines of 4.4, 4.6, and 4.17, all three of these stemming from the third floor roof deck access. The commission had shown concerns about how the third floor volume was expressed, both in terms of massing and detail. They also stated that they would have a challenge making an exception for a bulk plane violation for a form that is not necessarily historic. We were advised to reconsider the stair access and look at ways in which this volume could fit within the bulk plane, and we have done so accordingly. The top sheet of LM 201A in our landmark application shows our initial studies of the third floor volume, each of which fit within the bulk plane. We quickly steered away from these designs as the form became too complex when we had to adjust the roof over the stairs along the slope of the bulk plane. After these initial roof studies, we decided to look back at our previous submitted design as this was a preferred option for our clients in terms of the third floor access. The bottom left drawing on sheet LM 201A shows a very similar design to what was proposed during our April meeting, but with a seamless glass volume over the stairs as opposed to the detailed split windows in our previous submittal. Cleaning up this volume helps reduce the visibility as viewed from the street and provides comfortable headroom over the stairs. However, this roof still has a significant bulk plane encroachment. The bottom center drawing on sheet LM 201A shows a continuous sloping shed roof at the third floor volume and is the preferred alternative for our clients. The sloping roof minimizes the bulk plane encroachment while also creating a simplicity of design. Without the drop soffit over the stair landing, the head height of the stair access becomes much more comfortable, which is critical for our client's proposed use of the third floor.
Hey, Jason, can you stop for 1 second? Can somebody like manage the screen and show the slide
So
that
I
is?
do manage the screen, Carlos. If you have a presentation, we are happy to share that, but this
She's
is
just calling the pages from your presentation.
don't
You're
know
not
the
showing them.
pages.
Everybody's looking at the screen and nobody's seeing what he's representing.
Can you hold on a second?
Oh.
The commission has your full packet in front of them, and if you want to reference particular pages, Jason, you can reference those pages and find them in your packet. So we do share the whole packet with the commission.
They're all looking at the screen.
Okay, if commission could look at our application, sheet LM 201A is what I'm currently referencing. So we have those three proposed options at the bottom. The first one being a simplified version of our original submittal. The second one shows that sloping shed roof with a drop soffit over the stair landing. And this was studied for our bulk plane compliance, but is not preferred for the clients because the head height is currently at the code minimum and is not ideal for a new construction home. And then our third option is showing that continuous sloping shed roof at the third floor, and which minimizes the bulk plane encroachment from our initial submittal and creates enough head height and is critical for the client's use of the third floor. And then if you guys could go to sheet LM 201B of our application, this shows the primary street elevations and perspectives of the proposed options for the third floor volume. As seen in the perspectives at the bottom of the sheet, the third floor volume of option 2 and 3 have very minimal visibility when viewed at the street level. And then if we go to LM 201C, this shows sections through the stairs to demonstrate the head height clearances of all three options proposed, while option 2, which is the drawing in the middle, does not have a bulk plane encroachment. The reduced head height creates an uncomfortable transition while accessing this third floor. Option 3, the drawing on the right, is the preferred option for our client as it reduces the bulk plane encroachment from our initial design while still providing comfortable head height over the stairs. I now want to speak to some of the bulk plan issues that were addressed during our April meeting. The Commission mentioned their rationale behind approving bulk plan violations were to help the building become more compatible with the historic neighborhood. If we go back to sheet LM 200D of our application, it shows the previously approved bulk plan encroachments along the block. We would argue that most of these are not helping the project be more historically compatible with the Curtis Park neighborhood. 3056 and 3052 Champa both have an encroachment of a third floor flat roof deck with metal railings that are not characteristic of the neighborhood. 3032 Champa has a substantially large dormer with significant bulk plan encroachment, which is used to provide access to a third floor roof deck. While side dormers are common throughout Curtis Park, one of this scale and volume is not found in the neighborhood. 3022 Champa has a flat roof dormer, which also provides access to a third floor roof deck. This flat roof dormer is also not characteristic of the neighborhood, yet was still approved by the Commission. And then we have 3012 Champa Street, which also has a significant bulk plan encroachment for their third floor roof access. You have a doghouse style volume that is not something seen historically in the neighborhood and has far more encroachment than our current proposed design. We believe our updated third floor design has taken measures to reduce the bulk plan encroachment compared to many others along the block. The volume over the stairs that is currently encroaching is approximately 20 feet behind the front facade and minimally visible from the street perspective. Staff has suggested we push the rooftop access either all the way forward or all the way back to better hide access to the roof deck area. With our current stair circulation in the middle of the volume, these options are not possible without creating a secondary staircase or introducing another volume, which would in turn create further complexity in our overall massing. We do not feel that hiding this access is necessary, considering the third floor volume is about 40 feet from the front property line and is far less visible than some of the other third floor accesses already approved along this block. We welcome any feedback regarding these three proposed options for the third floor volume. On another note, I do want to address the chimney that is currently encroaching into the side setback. From our understanding, the side setback encroachment is not allowed per Denver zoning code, but we feel the chimney element is critical to the overall massing design of our project. With that being said, we would also need administrative adjustment for our proposed chimney. And I'll pass it along to Carlos.
Jason, Carolyn, I apologize. I forgot to ask you for your name and address before you started your presentation. Could you please give us that now?
Jason did provide.
Oh, Jason did. Carolyn, I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah, I currently live at 626 Alcatraz Avenue in Oakland, California.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Carlos, send for your name and address, please, before you give your presentation.
Yeah, Carlos Alvarez at Alvarez Morris Architecture, 121 Adams Street, Denver, Colorado. I just kind of want to emphasize Jason's presentation, which I think he hit on most of the items, but there's three elements here that I want to make sure everybody understands. Number one, Landmark and the neighborhood committee continue to address this project as a Queen Anne and Italian aid project, which we dismissed that thought on our last meeting over here. And we were just trying to deal with the project that had the right proportions and belong in this streetscape by emulating some of the same volumes of all the other homes. Landmark again said we did not evaluate what they suggested, and we actually did, but it was not worth following through, since by putting the staircase on the front, we would block the front entry and the floor plan would not work. Same on the back. Putting it in the front would also accentuate that bigger volume. While all we're trying to do is minimize the impact of that access to the rooftop. So our design approach was to do the most minimal design that we could do. We evaluated, like they were showing you in some of the presentations, all of the things that would, meet within the bulk plane. And in all honesty, all approaches that we took, they were just more convoluted and complex. So again, we're like trying to minimize the design. We took away some of the detail that we originally had. And again, by pushing it back and sloping it downward, it's virtually stealth, like you could hardly see this volume. So, we think it's appropriate, since we're not trying to emulate any of the historic styles. I think that's all I have to say.
Great. Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for any of the presenters? No questions? Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thank you, those who are joining us virtually. So public comments for design review projects. If you are joining by phone, dial *9 on your phone keypad to raise your hand, or email landmark@denvergov.org with your name, phone number, and on which property, well, this particular project would be what you would be speaking about. If you're joining via computer, please click on the little hand raise button, and you will have 2 minutes to provide your comment. Do we have anyone? No?
Yeah, just one second.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sue?
Sue Glassmacher, 1037 29th Street, Curtis Park. I'm here again, once again, talk about the mass form and context of the porch. The thick mass of the brick columns, the low front solid brick wall, and the back, the brick-sided steps are all elements of a bungalow craftsman porch, not the Victorian form, it's the craftsman's form. The flat roof with the long fascia board is mid-mod in my eye, to me. And that long line is so strong, horizontal line, that it creates, it's drawing attention to the width and breaking up verticality of the Victorian homes, Curtis Park. So it's looking much wider than it really is. Victorian porches have 6-inch wood columns. Rails and spindles can be used or left open. This porch fails in mass form context and is totally inappropriate. It's not, it's a mashup on this house. Porch examples cited are not original to the homes, historic homes. They were part of the great porch replacement of the early 20th century, which replaced any porch with a craftsman's porch. So that's why those examples are incorrect. That's it. Thank you.
Sue, thank you. We have another, have one more. Keith? Hi, Keith, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Name and
Great.
address,
Keith
please.
Pryor, 2418 Champa Street, Chair of the Design Review Committee for Curtis Park Neighbors. Would like to echo Sue's piece on the porch. It is a bungalow. The proportions are not correct, and it does not reflect that of the district. The two styles of roofs plus the shed dormer roof, again, is not a roof form that is found in the district. We need to see a hipped roof that ties all of these roofs together, that then actually reflects a roof form found in the district. Having two rooftop decks is not something that's ever been done in the district, and having the center staircase is common, but this new amenity, we have tried to be accommodating in the past and have allowed for bulk plane penetrations to accommodate this new lifestyle, but this house itself and its multi-roof formations just totally misses the mark, and it should be denied per staff's recommendation. There needs to be a further roof study in which we initially asked for the hipped roof to be studied to further minimize the roof access and to only allow one roof access to the property, and to hide that through the hipped roof situation. And so there are other alternatives that have not been studied that we continue to push to ask the applicant to study on this home to make it more compatible and fit the context of the district. We have multiple houses that sit on wide lots. My house at 2418 is a great example of that. And we do encourage the applicant to further study this. And we do ask the commission to deny this because the roof forms do not and are not compatible with the district. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Keith. Do we have anyone else that would like to make a comment? No other hands raised. Okay, great. All right, then we will close public comment. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions for the staff or any staff redirect before we get going? All right, then let us go into deliberation. Commissioners, what are your thoughts?
I guess I'll start.
Go ahead, Erin.
It seems to me that the applicant's focus on bulk plane and roof access are a bit tangential to the real issue before us, which is these different roof forms being meshed together, which however you want to style it architecturally is not the concern being that we're not seeing those combinations of roof forms in the district. So I think I just wanted to kind of emphasize that to me, that seems to be the real issue here. That is not being addressed or hasn't successfully been communicated or addressed by the applicant. Communicated to or addressed by the applicant,
Okay.
whichever the combination is. And that's, I think, remains my main concern.
That's your concern. Okay. Other comments about the three different types of roof? George.
I want to express appreciation for the all brick construction. It's hard to find that a lot nowadays, and it's good to see that was on the mind of the applicant. However, I have to agree with staff on the combination of the roof forms not being compatible with the neighborhood or really even each other as I can see them. It's also on the gable front. It appears that the bricks are in sort of a ripple pattern, which you never see that I have in a building of this era and surroundings, let us say. So yeah, I will have to concur with the staff on roof forms and the exterior appearance of the brick on the front.
Okay. Other thoughts? From our architects?
I would say that in general, I agree with staff relative to the third floor roof form. But I agree with the applicant relative to what everybody's terming the mix of styles. I do think it's a good blend between the houses adjacent to transition to this house. So contextually, I think it's fine. It's just that that shed roof is could use some more development, I guess, because it is out of place.
Okay. All right. Gary or Larry?
Well, I was trying to formulate exactly the difficulty I had. And I think Erica did it for me. I agree with the way she characterized the issue. It's not a matter of style, it's a matter of roof form. And I think, this is a typical problem when an applicant tries to push the envelope in terms of how big a house can you put on a given size lot. It's the desire, need, whatever for roof decks that's creating an issue. And while the guidelines offer ways of providing roof decks that are in compliance, this one just doesn't get it done, in my opinion. I agree with the staff's recommendations.
Larry?
Yeah, I think, Nick hit a lot of my points of I don't necessarily feel that and I think we discussed this as the applicant talked about, and I think we had consensus on it, as I recall, about the sort of flat roof section combining with the gable form. Being a contemporary interpretation of elements from the neighborhood, and that there wasn't per se an imperative to exactly hew to Queen Anne or Italian 8. But yeah, and I guess I'm just sort of on the fence about the impact of the shed roof. I mean, I think that it's, we're looking at this from all these perspectives, overhead and roof plan perspectives and so forth. But the street view perspectives that have been provided really do show minimal impact. And, I think but then there are still questions about, because of how they've shaped that, the bulk plane violation partly is, to allow roof deck access in a way that, involves a roof form that doesn't really work well with the context. So I don't know, it's a really challenging one for me.
So are you saying that the roof access doesn't meet the guidelines? Is that kind of what you're struggling with?
I think it's more about the conversation we had that the applicants have brought up this time again, is that providing a variance for bulk plane kind of hinges on the design overall being, that violation of the design contributes to the context. And I think we're all kind of in agreement that this particular roof access form for the stair portion doesn't, as a formal strategy, it's not really helping this design contribute to the context. And so there's, still
So
kind
it
of-
doesn't meet the guidelines?
it doesn't meet the guidelines, it doesn't meet the requirements for bulk plane violation, I think.
Right. You have thoughts, Erica?
Yeah, I just I'm wondering if we can discuss a little bit more about these various roof forms being brought together, because it sounds to me like we're kind of all leaning towards agreeing with the staff's recommendation, but I feel like it would be helpful to talk through what exactly is the issue so that the applicant knows.
Okay.
And so I guess I'm not totally sure that I'm in agreement that, and forgive me if I'm somehow backing away from what I had originally agreed to in previous discussions of this, but I guess I'm not entirely convinced that the flat roof and the gable roof together are appropriate. And so I don't want to keep kind of going down this middle road. And so if most people think that that is fine, then I just want to kind of hash that out.
Sure, I see Gary.
Well, for me, the thing that bothers me most about this is the parapet on the front roof deck, creating a facade expression that does not exist in the neighborhood. At least not to my knowledge, and not to anything that I've seen, in the application. And I think that's sort of, for me, the source of the difficulty of the conflicting forms. If you look at all, again, it's not whether it's Victorian or it's about expression of the forms that are used includes a precedent that does not exist, to my knowledge, in the district. And that form is the form that is necessitated by that front roof deck. I think the roof deck access could be more consistent with the guidelines if the front deck either went away or was treated in a manner that it didn't have that parapet. It doesn't even die into the roof, kind of stop short. I mean, it's just a kind of an awkward expression that's being driven by the desire to have that front deck. And I think that's sort of the source of the roof form complications as well as any kind of discussion about styles, but for me, it's not about styles, it's about forms that are present in the district.
All right, so, okay.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think that, yeah, regardless of whether or not in the grand scheme of things, we could, agree that that combination might be appropriate. I think it's when you then add on this, whether it's a shed roof or a doghouse style roof access, the complexity of all those things kind of coming together, I think is what we're concerned about. And I think that the study of the other houses on the block that have been approved all do have much simpler ways that they're addressing roof access or other, matters of attic access, basically.
Mhm.
So. Yeah, so maybe the parapet is just not doing them any favors.
Okay. That's fine. Nick, George, do you have any other thoughts?
I think Larry's hit it perfectly, looking at the streetscape. Yeah, the wall section that is to enclose the front roof deck is sort of the beginning of the end of having it look appropriate with its neighbor houses. I'm wondering how far back that shed roof is from the front edge. Well, it's not really. And again, the ripple brick.
Okay. All right, Nick, did you have any final thoughts? You don't have to be final. Do you have-
No, I listened to the discussion and, my opinion still remains as presented. I agree with the staff relative to the third floor. And I agree with the applicant relative to the form and style of what they presented. So I don't think I'm gonna be the obstacle to approval on this if the third floor if everything stayed the same and the third floor was developed in a way that was in better keeping with the neighborhood. I look at, and I'm stuck on elevation 1 on page LM 200C relative to the neighboring elevations and the bulk plane violations. And it certainly isn't the worst offender as the applicant has contended. And so I have personally, I have no problem with the bulk plane being violated in a way as it was at 3012 Champa with a flat roof structure. I know we objected to that last time, but looking at the alternatives, if it's a shed and it's not an intersecting gable, I prefer the flat roof on the third floor. This is personal preference. But I'm not in the majority, it seems.
I think this is where I have trouble because again, I don't think the bulk plane is really the issue here,
Right.
how it's encroaching upon it. It is the combination of the flat roof and the gable roof and how they're being tied or not tied together.
Yeah,
Whereas when we see other examples of encroaching in the bulk plane, they are more cohesive. In my opinion, as designs within themselves. So that, I think that's.
and
what I just
therefore
wanted to-
more in accordance with the guidelines.
Exactly.
Very
Yeah,
good.
and as I understand it, our authority, that's what you call it, to recommend a bulk plane variance is based on the fact that we believe the design meets the guidelines. And the bulk plane variance is necessary because the design meets the guidelines.
Correct.
I think our objection is the design doesn't meet the guidelines. So why are we even talking about a bulk plane violation exemption at this stage.
I think you may.
I do want to add, at the last meeting, the commission did give direction that you might be okay with this form, depending on how the bulk plane design was handled. So I think this is where the applicant is in this process, is that some of the direction from the last meeting has led to this design. Now, that is to say, the last design was not approved, and you don't have to approve anything if you feel like it's not meeting the guidelines, but just for more clarity on the evolution of the project.
Yeah, I guess to kind of follow on that. How do the other commissioners feel about the sort of option 2 on LM 201B where the stair roof is sort of set back from the side facade in order to not create a bulk plane? So that would basically give us the ability to evaluate this without really thinking about anything other than that little bit of parapet violation.
Sorry, Larry, you LM 201
B,
B, and then which one drawing we referenced?
option 2, the kind of middle portion of this overall.
In the
drawing.
top row.
In the
The
top row.
minutia.
Got it.
Yeah, I think that's more awkward than some of the other options. I think that's kind of a, the objection I have about that parapet on the facade, that is the edge of the front roof deck, I think would be the problem for me, even if an exemption was not necessary.
All right, commissioners, it sounds like we are moving toward bringing the staff on this. Am I reading this correctly? Is there anything else that you would like to say before we take a vote that might assist the homeowners and the applicants? There's been a lot of discussion, I know, but
It's a democratic process, right? For this commission. And I don't know where the votes fall. I don't support outright denial. But I'm in the minority.
I think it might be best to vote to make a motion and then
we'll
go from there.
then we'll see. Yeah, absolutely. Do I hear a motion from the commissioners?
Madam Chair, I move to deny application number 2023 COA 263 for the mass form and context of the proposed infill structure at 3044 Champa Street as per presented testimony, submitted documentation guidelines 4.4, 4.6, 4.17, Curtis Park character defining features, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, Gary moved and George seconded. So we'll take a vote. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
No abstentions. All right, so we have, it is approved. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ayes and 1 nay. So thank you to the applicant. And we are on to our next design review project, which is 2023 COA 294 at 32 West 3rd Avenue in the Baker neighborhood. And Brittany, you are our staff person who is up for that.
Let me get my screen share.
Of course.
And let me turn on the video. So our next project is for an addition and alterations to a contributing structure in the Baker Historic District. This structure was constructed in 1886 and is right at the eastern boundary of the Baker Historic District, which does have an irregular boundary. Across the alley, which is located on the east side of this property, is a commercial property. But this particular block is made up of 1.5-story sister houses that are every other lot, and then 2-story sister houses that are also every other lot. So it has a pretty regular rhythm, as you can see in the roof forms of the structure. This is the structure currently. The porch was replaced at some time, as well as the front door, but other than the brick being painted in the porch and front door alterations, the home is relatively intact on the primary facade. Here is the rear elevation. There is an existing CMU block addition that the applicant is proposing to modify and add on to as part of the alterations. Also, the roof form at the front of the home is a forward-facing gable and is a hipped roof at the rear. The applicant is proposing to modify the roof form from the hipped roof to a gable roof form to provide more headspace for the half story to make that more of a livable space. Additionally, on the front facade, the applicant is proposing to demolish the corrugated metal shed roof of the porch and construct a new roof above the existing columns. And install a new opening in the gable face with a casement window, and then a new basement egress window as well below the existing arched window. The casement egress in the basement is located in a bedroom. The egress proposed for the gable face is not located in a bedroom space. So here is the proposed site plan. The applicant is not changing the site significantly, but at the rear there will be new concrete paving. The new addition will also have an egress window, and there will be an egress window located on the west elevation of the historic home, as well as the egress that is proposed on the front facade. The egress on the front facade will be a higher quality well system than those proposed for the addition, which is the corrugated metal. And then the one on the west elevation is also a concrete egress. So here is the existing roof form. The applicant again is proposing to demolish the rear hipped roof form and construct a new gable. Although this does look like a significant amount of demolition, the contributing demolition is very limited, and it equates to 24 square feet of the historic roof. And then the applicant is also proposing 2 new skylights on the east roof slope, and then 1 new skylight on the west roof slope, as well as a new shed dormer on the west roof slope. Staff generally are supportive of a demolition of this roof form. It's not visible from the street, and we do not feel that it is a significant character defining feature of the home. And demolition is limited, although it will change the original structural system. We are supportive. So here is the proposed roof form. The existing CMU block addition will also have its flat roof demolished and replaced with a gable roof addition, and then there will be a new addition onto the CMU block addition, which you're seeing here. There will be a new skylight on the modified roof form as well, and then you can see that shed roof addition on the west roof slope. The shed roof addition is to allow stair head height in the interior space to make that half story a livable space for the applicants. Here are the existing elevations showing the areas of demolition. Again, staff are very concerned about the demolition on the front facing gable. Our guidelines do recommend against adding new openings on the front facade, as well as not installing new egress windows on the front facade. This is a complicated site, and the applicant has looked for other locations for the basement egress, but this location does work the best, so they have come forward with that. And then the applicant also feels that a gable face window is contextual to the Baker neighborhood. So have requested that commission review that as well. On the west facade, an existing window will be cut down at the basement level to provide egress. And then the applicant will also introduce a new window opening on the west facade at the rear of the home. As well, this will be a square window opening and will be differentiated from the arched openings that you see on this home. Changes along the alley elevation, which is the east elevation, are pretty limited, other than the modification of the roof form and those two new skylights. So here is the proposed front facade of the structure, again with the new windows introduced on the front facade. Again, our guidelines do discourage basement egress windows. However, it is located in a basement and is, in a bedroom and is required per code. And it is a high quality designed well, and it will have very limited visibility from the public right of way, as the majority of that egress is concealed below grade, and it does align with a window above. The front porch will be modified to have a shed roof with asphalt shingles to match the existing conditions. And then staff are concerned that the new gable face window will destroy some character defining features of the structure. It does appear that the shingling material is original on the front facade and would recommend that be retained and the new opening not be introduced in that gable face. Here you can see the shed dormer. It is located towards the front, but is so minimal in profile that staff did not have major concerns over that shed dormer. It will not have any windows in it just because it's such a low profile, but it will be clad in a shingle to match the existing shingling material. Here is the west elevation. This is the new egress window that will be introduced on the west elevation, and then the new window opening at the rear. We do allow additional openings on secondary elevations where they have limited visibility from the public right of way. Again, that very low profile shed dormer that is proposed to allow for head height for a new stair. And then the existing CMU block addition will be reclad in lap siding, and the new addition constructed off of that will also be clad in lap siding. This is inset from the west elevation significantly and will feature a change in materials as recommended by our design guidelines, and will have a gable roof form similar to the front form of the primary structure. This is the east elevation located along the alley. Again, minimal changes here. There is an existing window on the west elevation that's very small that boarded up that the applicant is proposing to reopen. And then again, that addition will have new cladding materials, which is a 4-inch horizontal lap siding with smooth finish. The applicant is showing a light fixture on this elevation. It appears appropriate and to meet our design guidelines. However, we were not provided a manufacturer spec, so we're just requesting that be submitted and ensure it complies with guidelines 5.118. And then this is the rear elevation. So here you can see again the modification to the roof form that will be modified into a gable with a new window. And then the addition below, which will have the CMU block modified into a gable roof form, and then a smaller addition constructed off of that existing addition. It is a 1-story addition located at the rear and will have minimal visual impact on the surrounding historic context. So generally speaking, staff are supportive of the alterations. I do have some details to show the commission. So this is the front egress window. Again, mostly located below grade and very minimally visible, a brick lined well. There will be a steel window header for this window, and it is a double hung egress window. And then you can see the egress window proposed on the west elevation on the historic home. That is a concrete well. So both of those are high quality materials, but on the addition, it will be a galvanized steel well. So here are just some renderings of the proposed alterations. Again, staff are supportive and are recommending conditional approval.
All right, commissioners, do you have any questions for Brittany?
I had a few questions. So the conditions that you're recommending include eliminating the front basement egress. You still stand by that, given how you characterized this?
So our guidelines technically say do not add an egress on the front elevation. I personally am not troubled by it due to the various complexities of the site and where it can be added. But that is for the commission to debate, and I have included it in my conditions as technically that is what our guidelines say.
Okay. And then I apologize if this sounds very nitpicky. The reason I bring this up is because, you know, our motions include the staff report as being the basis of our motions. And so one, there's some of the calculations of square footage seem to be off. And so I just kind of wanted to double check that I'm reading that correctly. One, that the front egress basement well does not actually project above grade for 3 feet. It's more like 3 to 6 inches or something like that. Is that correct? So this is comments under 2.18. Sorry. And again, I apologize. This probably seems just nitpicky, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
1 second.
Okay.
That does not seem correct. I think the 3 feet came out of what was in the applicant materials, but the motion also says based on the submitted materials, and that is what we do stamp. I would have to look into that a little bit more to answer that definitively though.
We can ask the applicant too, but the best I could see was that there was reference to being no more than 6 inches, which is part of our guidelines.
Yeah, I think that's a good question for the applicant.
Okay.
For
and-
clarity.
Yeah. Okay, just 2 more things. The gable face egress is not really a total demolition of 358 square feet, correct? Okay.
Definitely is not correct.
Yeah, and then I think this is, so the total square feet of the roof, original historic roof to be demolished is 197 square feet, totaling 24%.
Yes,
Okay, because there's been reference to 24 square feet, but it's
Sorry.
really percent. Okay,
apologies.
okay, that's okay. I understand many moving pieces. Okay, so thank you. I appreciate that.
Other questions for Brittany? Okay, great. All righty. Our applicants are here. If you'd like to come have a seat.
Sure.
Turn Brittany will set you up.
On for you. Don't start until I can get back to my computer and pull up a timer.
Alan, would you like to join me? This is the
Yeah.
homeowner. His name is Alan Elson, and the other homeowner, TN, had to work today, so he had to leave the meeting early.
Okay.
But I just want to thank everybody for their time today. And TN and Alan and I have worked really hard to, I don't know if this is part of my 10-minute presentation.
It would be.
I'll just tell you that we've worked hard to arrive to where we're at, and our intent is to try to fit within the historic guidelines.
Yep.
And, okay,
Yeah, we're not quite there yet.
okay,
Did you want to join him?
yeah, please do, Alan, if you would like.
Yeah, have a seat.
Awesome.
And then, when your presentation begins, please begin with your name and your address.
Okay, I could start out with my name, and my name is Matt Hodel, and I'm a designer at Key Illustration, and my address is 471 Poplar Street here in Denver. Okay. And Alan, do you want to tell him your name and address?
Oh, Alan Essler. 19493 East 59th Avenue, Aurora, 80019.
And Alan and TN are co-owners of this particular property at 32 West Third Street, okay? And just to clarify, is it now time for me to present?
I've
Okay.
been, yeah, your time. has
Okay.
started.
Just to clarify, first of all, the front egress window is definitely within, it's, the egress window is not projecting out of the ground more than 6 inches. I know there was some concern about that, but our intent is to have this window. What we're really doing is we're planning on underpinning this present crawl space condition to give us a full basement. And by the time I kind of get the window positioned in there, the only thing we're really going to be able to see is possibly the brick lintel that is actually supporting this particular window that I'm trying to ask for, that's at the front of the house. I think that most of my focus would be to try to address just what's going on in the front facade of the house. And so I do understand that the front window is of concern, especially the front window in the gable. And I started to go through the Baker Historic District guidelines, and they have a published PDF that the landmark design guidelines has come up with what the primary building features of the Baker neighborhood might be. And they kind of go, and when we look under the framed windows area, it says the frame windows are often in the upper gable. And I tried to give some supporting information to Brittany in the last few days before this meeting in regards to, I found 30 other homes that are within the actual Baker Historic District that do have this front window in the facade. And I think that it was probably a popular way to make good use of this Victorian attic space. I actually found another house at 159 Archer, and it's an excellent pathfinder example of kind of what this could look like as far as having a window in the front gable, and they actually have a egress window in the front facade of the house. So I just tried to do my homework from Google Earth and just try to show examples that my window is somewhat compatible. I tried to make a concession with Brittany several months ago concerning the divided lights. I had shown divided lights, and Brittany said, listen, this is probably not compatible. Divided lights, you're trying to make it look too historic at this moment. So I said, okay, I can come back. And I tried to simplify those windows. And so I would kind of call the window up high in the front gable. That's my bonus room window that I'm asking for. But again, I'm asking for the egress window down below because Tian has an extended family. His mom and dad, other siblings will be living in this house. And we would like to have as many bedroom spaces as possible. And in the event that, I tried to make an egress window work to the east or to the west, but the property setbacks just aren't allowing for that. And if I could just switch gears and then talk about the front porch, and I would just say that our objective of the front porch is that it has an old, I would say 1960s style fiberglass roof on it. And when the wind blows, it's making a lot of noise, and it's built out of 2x4 construction. And our intent is just to beef up the structure so that we can have, the proper snow loads for live load, dead load, which right now are just 2x4 construction. So I'm not intending on trying to change the porch in any way besides to make it structurally sound and to be able to have a shingled roof. I'm trying to keep it characteristic of the neighborhood as concerning the massing and the form and the general detail. My intent is not to manipulate the front porch or to change it to try to make it look Victorian, but just sort of deal with what we have, but solidify the construction of the actual porch. And just to talk quickly on my next point would be to talk about this upstairs access to the staircase is somewhat unusual that I would be asking for the dormer, but I studied a lot of different staircase scenarios. And what I'm really trying to do is have a staircase that as you arrive to the top of the staircase, either you can turn left or you can turn right when you're in the attic space. And if I were to try to bring a different type of staircase through the central location of the house that might be underneath the primary kind of ridge line, let's say, it sort of I don't have enough hallway width to be able to move and circulate through the space. So I feel like I've tried to answer to the upstairs and make something that my client can actually have workable spaces, but I also understand that, this lot is only 25 feet in width. And by the time I work my side setbacks of 5 feet from both sides, I really only have 15 feet that I can deal with upstairs. So I knew immediately that a pop top or some type of a smaller roof form just wasn't going to work with historic guidelines. So while what I'm asking for might be a little out of the historic approach, it's just one of these things where I'm just trying to make spaces work. And then I think the last point that I would touch on would be the modification of the rear roof. And, when I'm trying to remove this existing hip roof, without manipulating this roof, it makes it very difficult for me to provide any type of a bedroom space that might have an egress window that could be climbed out of in the rear of the house. So I guess that in closing, I would just say that, in the Baker district, I think that we're going to find a lot of other homes that are similar to what I'm trying to propose. I think that what I've proposed is characteristically, it would be compatible to the rest of the neighborhood. As I mentioned, I found over 30 homes that actually have these windows up high in the gable. And it would be our intent not to manipulate the exterior of the house, but just to get these small changes made.
All right,
Okay.
Alan, did you want to say?
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay, great. All right, perfect. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our applicants?
Yeah, I just have one question. I think it's pretty clear, but just to clarify that the steel lintel proposed for the basement egress window, you're proposing leaving that steel exposed on the facade so that will be visible above the window well. Is that correct?
The reason I chose that is that when I've looked at other historic manipulations of buildings, I don't really understand how I could change that brick design without the approach that I'm using to have the exposed lintel. I feel like that probably, I feel like that's my approach is probably standard as far as how a new window could be installed in a masonry condition that's existing. I don't know of any other solution that my solution is to try to have the least amount of impact on the masonry as possible to try to preserve the house. That would be my solution.
I guess following up on that, have you studied if it's possible to have that lintel, the top of that lintel be either at or below the level of the window well, so it's visible?
Okay, I think that that would be possible, that I could lower it several more inches. I'm just concerned that when the lower the window becomes down the well, I'm starting to limit how much natural light I'm actually getting into the space. And so it would be my recommendation that I try to make the 44-inch sill minimal from the basement floor to the top of sill as sort of driving this equation, right? And so I'm just trying to span the two different scenarios where I need to make the minimal 44 inches, and at the same time, I suppose it could lower down to several inches, but the brick actually is going to be coming out of the ground where I think that it's going to be very minimal what we're going to be able to see from the street. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicants? Okay, great. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any, now it's time for public comment. Or any, if there's anybody out there that would like to make a public comment, you'll have 2 minutes to make your comments. Taylor, do we have anybody? Nobody out there? Okay. All right. Any staff? Redirect? Any comments from staff?
Just one thing,
I mean, gable face windows are pretty common within Baker. Some are historic, some are non-historic alterations. We're not recommending denial because this is not a common feature. We're recommending denial because this would alter the historic fabric of this particular home.
All right. All right, commissioners, then let us go into deliberation. What are your thoughts on this? Thoughts about the basement egress, Gary? You want to-
Well, regarding the gable end window, if the objective is to get light in a bonus room, it can be done with a skylight as proposed for the family room behind it. And that way, the integrity of the original facade would be preserved. So I agree with that element of the staff's recommendation. And I'm also troubled by the exposed angle, because there are ways of concealing a steel lintel angle in an existing masonry wall. It requires some work and some, skill and some know-how, but it can be done. And so I would like to see that included in the conditions. Other than that, I think I agree with the staff support.
So to clarify, Gary, you would be okay with removing the suggested condition of eliminating the front basement egress
Yes.
window instead of replacing it with language regarding the lintel itself.
Right.
Okay,
I'm
George?
okay with the egress window. In this particular case, it's a mandated egress window. The amount of light that comes in is secondary to getting out of there if there's a fire. So I'd support a condition that lowers the lintel of the window. But definitely keep the egress window there. As far as the gable face opening, yes, there are houses that do have them, houses that don't have them. This is like the same language with a slightly different accent. So my concern would be what is the gable window versus Gary's suggestion of a skylight. Now, does that window occur on a stairway? I don't think it does.
No, it doesn't. It occurs inside of a small,
So,
I'm
okay,
calling it bonus room, but it's
Okay.
a small space.
then
Commission is in deliberation.
then I would
Okay.
suggest make every effort you can to use a skylight as opposed to putting another hole in the front of the window. Yes?
No, well,
Oh,
I just,
okay.
go ahead. I'm not interrupting.
Did I get your idea wrong or?
No.
Okay, so other than that, I think they've done a really good job with modifying a house with a 25-foot lot. Been there, done that, lived there. Good for you.
Gary, did you have?
Well, I apologize for my interruption.
No,
It occurred to me that if we agree that with the staff's recommendation to eliminate that new window,
Mhm.
if they decide to add a skylight, is that something the staff can approve?
I can approve that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
that was-
Good,
that's-
so you don't have to-
They want to make things more complicated.
Okay.
Larry, Nick, what are you guys thinking?
I agree with staff and everything that's been said by my colleagues.
All right, Larry?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Seth. I mean, I think that, I applaud the applicant for proposing a really well proportioned window in the gable fronts. Having lived in Baker for a while, I feel like this wouldn't be at all out of character, but I think that if an alternative way of achieving that light in that space is possible, then I think, it's just hard for us to argue that meets the guidelines. So, and then, yeah, I guess the question I would have with regards to the egress window, I mean, I agree with Gary. I think the ideal scenario with the egress window header would be to have the visible face of it be masonry, which is achievable, but does require a little bit more complexity in the construction. versus like lowering it and still having it be exposed to steel. So yeah, if you want to make that part of the.
Okay, so it sounds to me like we're coming to an agreement, so, basically, number 2. We would either take that or we would, I just screwed that up, we would alter it to, include your thoughts about particular construction, lintel.
Yeah,
Lintel of egress, window, even with grade. Does that work?
I can attempt
Yeah,
That would be great.
the motion and.
okay,
I move to conditionally approve application number 2023 COA 294 for the alterations and additions at 32 West Third Avenue as per guidelines, design guidelines. 2.14, 2.18, 2.25, 2.28, 2.39, 3.1, 3.3 through 3.10, 5.2 and 5.18. Character defining features for the Baker Neighborhood Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. Eliminate the new gable face opening on the front facade from the project scope. Modify the new front facade basement egress and well to conceal the lintel above the opening and ensure that the area well does not extend above grade more than 6 inches. And provide manufacturer specifications on proposed lighting to ensure it complies with guidelines 5.18.
Thank you, Gary. Do I hear a second?
second.
All right, let's take the vote.
Who are you gonna give that to?
Oh, I thought it was George.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it wasn't me. It was me.
Sorry, guys. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. No one abstained, so, it has been conditionally approved.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all of your time today. I really appreciate it.
You are
Have a wonderful day.
Anything that can color?
All right, we are at this point in our meeting, commissioners, to discussion items. And Brittany is going to put us to work with this landmark application checklist update. As long as I can read it on your computer. No, remember glasses next time. Discussion item process. These are informational items or items for our commission to discuss without action. There is no public comment or discussion items. I will announce the discussion items on agenda. Staff will introduce the informational item or item for discussion. The commission will discuss amongst themselves and with staff. No actions or votes will be taken for discussion items.
Let me start my video again. Oh my. Okay, so for several years now, staff have been working on an update to our application and middle checklist. As we've discussed at the LPC retreat, currently we have several different application forms. We wanted to simplify that into one application form. Also, this will serve as a transition for when Landmark finally goes into Acela and people submit via the permitting system as opposed to directly to us Landmark staff. So this will serve as a transition for our application and intake team to have a checklist to ensure applications are complete before they're referred out to Landmark for review. So generally speaking, the application form and checklist is based off of the residential form and some of the residential submittal requirements, particularly for the requirements for all application forms. Landmark staff have gone through several drafts of this, at least 5, and it has been reviewed by the city attorney's office, our communications team, as well as other
permitting groups within the city that includes residential team, engineering, building permitting, zoning. So it's been reviewed by several groups. So we're finally at what we would like to consider a final draft, and we would like to make this effective on August 28th, which would be in time for the September filing deadlines. If you guys do see any minor edits, I would love to hear those. But if they're major edits, we may not.
To ourselves.
Well, don't keep them to yourselves, but this is intended to be a living document, so we may not incorporate it right away, we may incorporate it some other time. But at this point, like, we would like it to be more in this state, less or so speaking. So in general, just a few things about the application checklist and application form itself. So the form itself has information that, generally speaking, we've always required: the property address, the scope of work. Now there is the ability to check off what your project type is. Previously, we had this all broken up into different application forms, and sometimes people would submit like 5 different applications for one entire project scope because they wanted to make sure they were submitting all that required applications. If you're in the PDF version of this, the project types are linkable, so they will take you right to the checklist. Applicant information, and then signature required. The next page is the requirements for all applications and how to submit to our office, and reference that the project may be reviewable through a quick permit process, or actually quick review, as we don't actually permit anything, and how to submit. The requirements for all applications are generally photographs, existing and proposed site plan, and existing and proposed building elevations. And again, based off of the requirements in the residential review team and other teams. And then the next couple of pages are the individual checklists. Some project types have been combined into one checklist, principally additions, dormer additions, pop top additions, rooftop additions, and rooftop decks are combined into one checklist. There are links to other applications, as we will still have other applications like our total demolition and comprehensive sign plan application. I know you guys don't see a lot of those, but we do get a lot of those for lower downtown. Occasionally we see them for large campuses like Denver Art Museum. So that is the general format. The checklist is not exactly in alphabetical order. Some of it has to do with, I wanted certain things on certain pages together, like signage and the comprehensive sign plan on one page together, as well as zone lot amendments and infill construction generally on one page together. So that is the update on that. And again, we would like this to be effective on August 28th. And if that goes into effect, we would update the form one more time at the very bottom here where it says revised to just the effective date. So any questions or concerns on that?
Just a question. I understand that demolishing a certain percentage of a building would have tax or zoning implications, and I just wondered if the landmark percentages are dovetail with the, developers tear down 3 walls or leave 3 walls up, and then they say it's not a total demolition.
So total demolition is defined by the zoning code, and it's 40% of exterior walls. Our design guidelines take that further and say 40% of exterior walls, roof structure, which is not in the zoning code, or combined square footage. That is referenced in the checklist under each section about demolition. It does say see page 17 of the design guidelines. where you can find that information.
Okay.
Um,
Didn't want to give them a loophole.
all of your applications are digital, correct?
Mostly, yes.
I'm maybe just an information question, complying with the requirements for the building elevations and drawings. If the submittal is printed full size, it's still 11 by 17? Is that somehow defined like it used to be, or?
We didn't define that anymore. We haven't had a printed submittal since 2020, I don't think. So we didn't define that. We do sometimes get submittals that are larger than 11 by 17 even today, but I personally haven't printed anything.
Okay.
And as we don't print for you guys, which was the main reason we had the 11 by 17 requirement. So when we would put it in the mail, it would fit in the mail. We did not define that this time.
This is more out of curiosity. Previously, are the photographs that are required, were they as well defined, like how they were supposed to be? Okay.
Yeah, there's been no change to the requirements for many of the things on this list. And that's one of the reasons why it doesn't require a rulemaking process in which you officially adopt it. It's just codifying it all in one place.
Got it.
Okay. So that was kind of what you're trying to do, just this is just get everything in one place and simplify for everyone, applicants and interested. Recommended, okay.
Yeah, I was hesitant when I saw that it's like the 13-page,
No.
application, but if that's combining, yeah, 13 one-page applications.
Yeah, it would be nice if they don't have to click on different things.
Exactly.
Make sure they get everything. All right.
We had a lot of debate about that as well.
I'm sure there's always debate. Any other comments for Brittany? Okay, cool. Thank you. Good luck. All right. Next discussion item, Kara is going to talk to us about thematic landmarks. And it's
Yes.
very exciting. I'm excited to hear about this.
So here, my remote control stuff doesn't always work.
Okay.
I don't know why. I'll try. And see what happens.
Okay. Well, I'm here to talk to you guys about, and anyone in the public who is still listening, about thematic historic districts, which is a form of historic districts. Let's see. I'm getting something, Brittany. Let's see. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So as you guys know, the Denver Landmark Ordinance was established in 1967. And so we base all of our applications for designation are based on the requirements of the ordinance. And so I wanted to go over a little bit of the designation requirements, what a thematic district is, how it differs from other districts, and give you guys some examples of what could be districts. So in order for a district or structure to be designated, it needs to maintain integrity, be more than 30 years of age or exceptionally significant, meet at least 3 of the 10 criteria, and then you all consider the historic context. So designation criteria, a district would have to meet 3 out of 10. That isn't changing at all. But wanted to point out that we do already have a thematic district. And so we show this map to you guys for different types of, basically at the front of all of our designations. But the thing is, all the stuff here on the right hides something right here that you don't really see. And so let me pull up our map. And so it shows the downtown detail for the downtown Denver district, and shows that this is a discontiguous district, meaning that none of the properties aren't all together like you would see on a traditional district where there's an entire block. And you can see that a little bit up there, where you can see lower downtown and you can see Larimer Square. This is the downtown district. And
Here is the map that went with it with the designation. And so there are separate buildings. They are all contributing. And so the landmark boundary are the legal descriptions of each of the parcels for each property. And so the boundary isn't just one all-encompassing, but it's a list of every individual property. But it is a district. It's all united. And it's has a common theme, the development of downtown Denver. It has a defined area, which is really the core of the city. And there's a time period that it's significant for, which is the late 19th and 20th centuries. And so we have a thematic district. We just haven't really, it's the only one. And it was done in 2000. And so if you would see any more coming forward, we thought you guys might need an update of what, none of you were here 23 years ago. So we thought this might be a helpful way to update this. So what are the requirements on our new app? Like we have, obviously our designation applications have evolved over time. And so this is the thematic district. It looks, basically the same as all of our designation applications, except for it has one call out box that talks about the theme. And so it asks the applicant to describe the themes and any subcategories that may be under it, the geographical area studied, and the chronological period examined. And then it asks to provide why properties were included and how it was determined that they were included in this thematic district. It is also very similar to the registration requirements of an MPDF, which I think Julie and Erica may care a lot about. I'm not sure anyone else is going to care, but it's very similar to an MPDF, which is a National Register designation. So wanted to kind of just go here, sort of the things you guys should remember, that a thematic district would be united by a strong theme. There may be some subcategories underneath that, and we'll give some examples of that. There's going to be tied to a well-defined period of significance. It can be a geographic area, so it could be a neighborhood, an area, or the entirety of the city. These, I just chose photos. These are all Denver landmarks that are listed related to travel. So you wouldn't necessarily do that, but I at least wanted some photos to show you guys. So here are some buildings all related to travel and over time, and that they are going to basically be discontiguous with primarily contributing buildings. In the downtown district, they're all contributing, but if you would have like a residential, you could have some like accessory buildings, like a garage that would be non-contributing. But for the most part, it's made up of contributing buildings, but you could have some accessory structures that do not contribute to the district, but they're all very strongly united by a particular theme. And so wanted to give you guys a couple of examples. So, you could do something. I would love it if someone would do the dingbats of Cap Hill. Dingbats is, a type. I know it is a type of building. It originated in California, where you have basically these little like carports underneath it. So you could do something that would be the dingbats of Cap Hill. I just think that would be great if someone would put that out. I think that's excellent. So it would be the development of the apartments in the Cap Hill area. Why were they brought into Cap Hill? What was demolished to put them in? Why did they choose this particular form versus another?
Why do they call it that?
Yes. We could bring Kathy in. She has a whole thing on dingbats. And then you would have like a time period. Typically dingbats are more 1950s and 60s, but we have them into the 70s here in Denver, in sort of the Cap Hill Congress Park area. So I made up a time frame of 1960 to 1979, but that could be something that it's tied to the architectural form, but also the history of why it came into the neighborhood. Why was they're centralized in the Cap Hill area. So that one I thought was just great fun. If any one of you want to take on that, I would highly encourage it.
Very.
You could do another one, which would be like queer spaces in Denver. So the theme would be LGBTQ plus history in Denver. And you could have some subcategories underneath that, like the fight for equality in the civic realm, the AIDS crisis, the evolution of queer spaces. So I wanted to give you guys an example of something where you would have a theme and then sort of sub-themes or categories that focus on different areas of a particular stronger theme.
You could have a geographic area, it could be the entire city, it could be Cap Hill area, and you could have, you know, a time period, 1930s to like 2015. I chose 2015. I realize that goes beyond the 30 years, but that's when you had the major Supreme Court rulings in favor of marriage equality in 2015. And so would say that because of its civil rights aspect, that you could bring a period of significance that far forward. And that's it. Just are there any questions? So I'd be happy to chat with you guys about it. Just wanted to like introduce this to you. We've had questions about it from members of the community. I know I found something that Savannah had that Congress Park had been asking for like 15 years ago, of something similar. So it's been around, it just hasn't been used a lot. And so wanted to like introduce this to you because I am going to tomorrow night a community meeting with someone who's doing a proposed thematic district. And so wanted to make sure if something comes forward that you guys had gotten a little update on it. And so happy to chat with you guys. Erica?
I had two questions. One was, so when we are considering design review for districts, we're looking at the context of that district. And I know that we've looked at one for the downtown Denver that I think kind of considered the context, but I'm just curious if you have additional thoughts to share on how we consider that in a thematic district, or if there are any other kind of administrative differences in how we deal with design review for these.
Since we haven't had one beyond the downtown district, I don't have a lot of experience. I'm going to bring up something and then Brittany can tell me if she contradicts it or not. There's the Stewart Street where there are a bunch of individual buildings, but they're all on the same street and have a similar concept. And we really had a lot of discussions about how do you look at context on that. And I think you guys ended up reviewing an infill project. So I think
William Lane.
Yes. So, but I would also look to Brittany, and we haven't had in-depth conversations as staff for what that would look like.
For downtown, a lot of it has to do with the buildings in and of itself, because you have a range of architectural styles from early 19th century up until 1950s buildings. So a lot of times we're looking at the individual impact on the building. Now that all being said, they're all like commercially tied together buildings. So a lot of times like we're like, well, storefronts are pretty common. So we're looking for storefronts on these buildings. But how those storefronts are articulated can be very different from building to building, depending on the era. So we look for those types of connections, and it does vary depending on like, for like Kara's examples here, dingbats, like you're going to have a connected, cohesive architectural style that you want to preserve. But for like queer spaces, you're probably not going to have cohesive architecture. So you're really looking at the individual building and like how that individual building contributes to the significance of that district. So like, for instance, the center on Colfax is like very different than the church that Kara had on the screen. And you're going to look at like what those elements of that building tie into why the district was designated.
So I guess that gets to like, you know, when we saw with La Alma, there were design guidelines that came in at the same time. And am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah. They came through
Like
basically
chain fences.
similarly in that we didn't quite finish the design guidelines because we didn't want it to go all the way to council and have it denied. But yes, very like.
But they were kind of hand in hand.
Mhm.
And it seems to me like that would be a smart approach to still have with most of these, to kind of give a commission guidance on how to consider, is it architecture and therefore, you know, these things are more important, or is it really more of a case-by-case basis based on the theme itself? So I'll just say that.
Yeah, that could be helpful. Like the one that they're thinking about is fairly traditional architecture that you guys are typically used to reviewing. So I think it wouldn't be as much of a challenge.
Yeah.
Whereas some other ones like dingbats, which you wouldn't have seen a lot of, or queer spaces, which may be really different and more culturally significant than architecturally significant. But yeah, I agree. I think that's an important thing to consider.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry. Can we, like an MPDF, which is really a designation tool, not so much designation, that lays the groundwork for how to more easily, for lack of a better word, designate something. Can these thematic districts be added onto? Like, can another building be designated under the district without?
You could amend the boundary of the district, and I would look to Adam for a little bit of that. It would still have to go through the same process of like a designation, but the boundary could be amended to add to it.
But theoretically, the designation itself would still have to kind of give the whole, kind of reiterate the whole.
Yeah, so you could probably.
Criteria applying,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah. So this is like, it's going to look like similar designations that you see for a district, where you have basically the bulk of the information, and then you have inventory forms for each property. So to go through again, you would probably have still the same kind of bulk and a separate inventory form to add to it.
Sorry, Gary.
That's right. I just, would the thematic district be also available for a significant architect who maybe did 20 buildings in Denver, they are scattered all over the place?
Yeah, that would be a way to do that. So that was, the idea was that like, there are things like that that don't lend themselves to the traditional district that talks about the development of these four blocks. But what are things that are still thematically linked together, but that are not connected, that are not physically connected? And so, yeah, so something like that, you could do all of Muchow's, significant buildings or something. It would still have to meet 3 criteria, as well as clearly articulate the theme and how the properties meet the theme or the subcategories. So it makes it in some ways a slightly higher bar, because you have to meet the theme, and you still, the overall theme still have to meet the criteria.
You started it, so you wanted to live.
Yeah. But it is as a way to get to other histories that aren't as easily told through development.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you the kind of value of that to be able to keep, get protection for certain kinds of structures that may be, because they're not part of like a cohesive district, but also maybe they don't necessarily have the one structure in and of itself doesn't have like
Right.
enough going to meet the, 3 of the requirements, then maybe paired with some others that it didn't start.
Yeah. Yeah, so I really think like there could be a lot of like civil rights sites that could be really important, that these, as taken as a whole, all of these sites are significant, but these 20 sites wouldn't meet them all individually. And so as a whole, they really help tell a story.
There's tons of possibilities.
Mhm.
I mean, I was just thinking, I mean, you went to civil rights, I mean, to Dolly Madison. I wonder if there's a thing there all the time. Dolly Madison.
Seas candy or
Stubbers.
well, or pigmented glass storefronts or something like that.
It's really, seriously, the possibilities are really, really intriguing.
Yeah, we just want to provide another tool for the community. I mean, it's one that we already had, but we hadn't really been promoting it. So another, tool for community members to come forward and say, I think, the Italian American community on the north side is really important, but with so much demolition, there's not enough to hold a whole district together. But there are these 12 buildings that are really significant to the community.
Wouldn't it be great to have a plaque that says this is a dingbat?
Oh, yeah,
I didn't know that's what they were called.
No, I never heard that.
I've
term
never
associated.
heard
Well, there were
I-
201s, 401s, or 401.
I don't know I'm not sure. Kathy's the one who introduced me to that term. Obviously, she's the one who would know. Yeah, Kathy Corbett would know. And so,
The name comes from like typography and book design and like decorative elements on the edges of the book that you often see on these building facades.
So all the type, all those weird typographical
Yeah.
images are called big bats.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna remember that.
that's where that comes from.
It wasn't Archie Bunker.
Wasn't something, no, it wasn't something getting made up. Any other comments for Karen?
Thanks.
Kara, thank you. That was
Yeah.
really intriguing, really.
No
interesting.
problem.
Any other items for the good of the order?
I did send an email this morning, and perhaps you saw it in our newsletter. We are kicking off the design guideline update phase 2, and our first topic will be solely on Windows. And I did announce this at the August 1st meeting. We did minimally have to adjust the meeting schedule, so we are meeting on Zoom on September 6th from 6 to 7. And then in person on September 12th from 6:30 to 7:30 at Carla Madison Rec Center. We would love you as the commissioners to listen in. You're more than welcome to provide comments directly to us staff. But the public community meetings are more intended for you guys to listen to. If you can attend, we will record the Zoom meeting and post it on the project website. And our newsletter did go out today, so there's a bunch of things in there.
Very, very busy. All right,
Yes.
anything else?
No.
All right, then commissioners, I am closing the Landmark Commission meeting at 2:51 technically. All right, everybody have a great afternoon. Thanks.
Likewise, thank you.